You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
You're going to hear on the program when we put this up on YouTube. And by the way, if you guys out there listening aren't aware, we are now podcasting, recording, and leaving all of these episodes to live on and on for you to pass it along to your friends. Ben has been a guest on our show before. I think we tried to talk sports, and we just got right into like the National Defense Authorization Act and all of the currency manipulation and whatnot. And I think we're going to make that transition now. You're my transitional guest again this week.
Perfect.
But we will put this out there, and what we're going to do, Ben, is we're going to put this segment with you on both the back end of our interview with John Telich from Fox 8 Cleveland, 10-time Emmy Award-winning sportscaster. We talked with him for the better part of an hour, and then we're gonna have you as the intro for our next two guests, as we're going to bring in somebody from Lions of Liberty, and we're going to bring in somebody who helped book Ron Paul at UCLA in front of 6,600 people last week. So you're going to be a part of both shows, sir. I didn't know if you were aware of that, but I wanted to tell you.
No, hey, I'm honored. And hey, to follow a guy like John Telich, 10-time Emmy Award winner, a guy I grew up watching in Cleveland, so a lot of respect there.
Absolutely. Now let's go ahead and make that hard pivot, and let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Let's introduce you, who you are, what you're doing over on your sites, and then we're going to pivot into politics for a minute, and then we're going to bounce out of here so you can start getting ready for your show.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. It's always great to connect with you live, Brian, and love what you guys do over there. You guys really inspired us to get started. And, my name's Ben Weinbrewer, originally from Cleveland, just like Brian, and moved out here to Chicago in 2007. And like-minded friends and I came up with, we decided to kind of take a cue from Brian, established our own site. It's called existential.com. It's EXIS10TIAL.com. We do a live show just like Brian's. It's very politically charged. But we go on live at 8 p.m. Central Time, so just in a couple of, about an hour and 15 minutes, we'll be live on the air. But we talk politics. We're a liberty-minded, freedom-loving type of show, just like Brian's. And, boy, Brian, we seem to be on the same page in a lot of the, not only the current events news-wise and geopolitically, but certainly as it relates to the economies and monetary policy.
It's hilarious because when it, like you said, when it comes to politics, all of the intricate financial stuff, the games, the political games, when you get into bigger picture, and then all the way down to something so insignificant as what team full of millionaires wearing what jersey are going to defeat the other team of millionaires wearing another jersey. We're very much on the same page with a lot of these, and I find it interesting because usually when I find people that are too similar to me, all my friends are like, hey, you got to meet my friend. And we usually butt heads because it's like talking to yourself and just
right. Something
goes weird. But over the course of the past half year, I think things have gone quite well with you and I so far. So I'm pretty impressed with that. I got to throw that out there.
You know what? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, a lot of folks that are like-minded in the way we are, we're shouting at the top of our lungs to get some attention to some of these stories that are just being glossed over by mainstream media. If touched on at all, and that really gives us an opportunity to kind of, find a common bond there in terms of fighting that good fight.
Now talk about the good fight. It is the political season. Sum it up for people who don't know you yet, who might be tuning in to listen to some Cleveland sports or whatnot, and just stumbling across this. What is the most important stuff on your mind these days? Because a lot of people get really wrapped up in the NHL playoffs or, the NFL draft, and we get locked into all these things and we lose sight of our country and our freedom and liberty. So what is it that gets you going? What do you think is the most important? And why should people, as you say, wake up? Why do people need to wake up at this point? And what got you woken up, I guess?
Well, you know what? To be perfectly honest with you, a couple of years ago, really starting to look further into September 11th. That's kind of what really got me a little bit creeped out because there were just some doubts and there seemed to be some conflicting reports as to what's happened and who was involved and how that worked. So when I started to have some doubts about that, I kind of it really started to explore different, because that story alone, obviously that's just a watershed event in our lifetime, in the past 10, plus years. It really changed geopolitics tremendously, and it changed domestic politics, which I think a lot of people lose sight of in the form of the Patriot Act. And subsequently, we've had a lot of legislation that's kind of, gone along furthering those lines, So that's kind of what got me involved heavily in the geopolitical side of things. But In terms of what's, on our agenda, we're going to be talking this on our show tonight. I mean, certainly the North Korean piece, that's certainly made some waves in the geopolitical community globally. Santorum ended his presidential run. We're going to talk about that and the impact on the GOP. We're going to talk about Sean Stone actually put out a short 10-minute documentary, kind of a short documentary, actually calling for the impeachment of President Obama. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about QE3, markets reacting to that. So we've got quite a few things we're going to be talking about tonight. But, this Trayvon Martin case seems to be something that's really been prevalent in the mainstream media this past week. And we kind of touched on this a few weeks back, Brian, and it's a story. And as we see now that it's going to trial, I think it's newsworthy, not for the fact that the tragedy happened, and an unarmed man was killed in Florida, but why is it a story? Why is it prevalent in the media? Why is it being pushed? And why is it creating such racial tension when people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are out, and in some cases calling for violence? So you have some motives there, and you start to ask some more questions, and that's a curious story to me too. I'm sure that's going to come up through the course of interaction with the audience, and so we're going to be touching on that too. But what's your take on that, man? Because that's still something that's in the mainstream media, and now that it's going to trial, it's almost like it's going to be another OJ type situation.
Look. All right. Here's what it is, and I know you and I have it's been a few weeks since you and I have talked, Ben, but here's the thing. And I was thinking about this earlier, and here's what I want to say about this George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin situation. Okay, right. There's a kid that's dead. That is unfortunate. That is an unpleasant thing that has occurred. So in this unpleasant thing that has occurred, this kid was killed. Now,
yeah, it's tragic.
We have to determine, and not you and me, because we're not trying this case, but there are people that have to determine, was the deceased a guy that was stalked and attacked? Could that be the situation? Was he stalked and then attacked?
Right.
That is possible. So he could have been stalked and attacked, or he could have been stalked and he could have been confronted, and then he could have went after the person who was following him. So I could see a situation where there's some kid walking at night. Okay, just imagine it's you and me. You're walking at night. Some dude's following you. All right, you're interested for a minute. Then he maybe starts speeding up. Maybe he's got his chest puffed out like, hey, man, this is my neighborhood. I don't recognize you. Because why would he recognize him in his neighborhood watch? This kid was on suspension. He was staying, I think, with his father for 5 days or 10 days in a new neighborhood. He didn't recognize this guy. Okay, so maybe this George Zimmerman guy approached and wanted to puff his chest out knowing that he was packing, and he's like, well, what are you going to do, man? And maybe this kid ran away and was attacked by George Zimmerman, who pulled out a gun and shot him while he was running away and pinned him down and just killed him and pretended he got attacked. Or maybe the kid that was scared turned around and confronted the other guy and said, hey, look, I know this is me speaking now. I know who I was at 17 years old. You couldn't tell me anything. You couldn't challenge me. You couldn't confront me. There's nothing you could do to me that was going to get me to back down when I was right. And if I was just walking down the road, screw you, buddy. Come on. What's your deal? Let's go.
Right.
Now, if and I'm still just putting these out there because I don't know if there was a confrontation there, and maybe this guy got overpowered, this George Zimmerman, and he said, "Now I'm fearful for my life, and I got to defend myself because yes, I was walking close to this guy, but I didn't punch him in the face. I didn't shoot him from across the street. I'm walking by him. I'm allowed to walk by somebody." If the other kid turns and attacks him, then you got another tricky situation. So, there are so many questions I have. I don't care that the guy's... I don't care that my president is half white and half black. I don't care. I don't care that this victim in this case, the deceased, is black. That doesn't concern me. It doesn't concern me that the guy who pulled the trigger is half white and half Latino. That doesn't concern me either. It's a situation of where did this escalate into violence? How was it ended? And it's just... This is the smokescreen that the Obama administration wants us to get lost in, distracted. Here are the jingly keys for the baby, so they'll look at them and stop crying, while the left hand is going and raiding the piggy bank. So for me, it's a criminal court case. I support Neighborhood Watch. I support the Second Amendment. I support our police department. I don't support escalating violence, but I do support the defending yourself. So it's very complicated, but the half white and all black component is not the story here. That has nothing to do with somebody being dead, unless maybe this guy had it in for people of a different color. And if he did, maybe it's because there was high crime in his neighborhood, or maybe because he's a bigot. I just don't know, Ben. I don't know the answer to that specifically, and I know I've rambled a little bit here, and when this goes out on YouTube, we'll see what the reaction is to it, but those are my initial thoughts. What are yours?
Well, let me say this. First of all, you're very astute to point out the fact that we don't know any of the facts. All we know is what CNN has told us, and we know how reliable that is, right? So we know that we know pretty much nothing. Matter of fact, there was an affidavit that just came out the other day that seems to suggest that Trayvon's story's right, when some of the evidence on the fringe has seemed to suggest that it was, in fact, self-defense. And then, of course, this kid had a meltdown and lost his counsel this past week. So the reality is we don't know the facts. We won't know the facts until this thing goes to trial.
Right.
And so I totally agree with you on that sense. Let me respond to your hypothetical situation. If that were to happen to me, it would happen here in the city of Chicago, the city with the strictest gun laws in the country. So I wouldn't be packing. But you know what's likely? The other guy would, and he would be packing illegally. So if the same thing were to happen to me in Chicago, I'd probably be the one that's dead. But let me tell you something. It wouldn't be talked about. It certainly wouldn't be on mainstream media the way this story is. I could give you 12, 20, how many, Mike? How many examples in just the past couple of months of crimes, hate crimes that could be considered hate crimes, just as this one has been suggested that it may be, that have gone on in Chicago that are just as unjust, just as outrageous, and in some cases, white on black, black on white. It doesn't matter. But those cases seem to be glossed over. Those cases aren't getting in the mainstream the way this particular case is. So I'm just, I think you're right to point out that this is, it's simply a huge distraction. I mean, let's not worry about the fact that we're bankrupt. Let's not worry about the fact that the European economy is absolutely melting down. Let's not worry about the fact that J.P. Morgan's manipulating the silver prices. Let's just keep worrying about Trayvon, and let's keep close to that Whitney story and make sure we know how she died. And, let me know what happened to Dancing with the Stars last week. That's what people care about. And that's why we talk about, the concept of waking people up.
Well, there's also Iran.
Hey, man,
Let's get
short, man. Hey, Brian, I hate to cut you short, man. I got to run. I just had somebody pop in, man. We got to get ready for our show real quick. I hate to end it there, man, because I know it's such a hot topic. But
no, Ben, it's perfect. It's perfect. We got to bring on the guy that helped bring Ron Paul out to UCLA last week, Tyler Kotesky. We'll bring him in. Yes, there are distractions. There's Iran. There's North Korea. There's all these things that are distracting us. I pray for the families of both Zimmerman and Martin. Let's get to the details of it, and may justice prevail. Ben, good luck on your show today. We'll talk again in a few, okay?
Absolutely, Brian. Appreciate you letting us on, man.
I sure thing. Take care, buddy. That was Ben. We call him Existential Ben. He has his radio show, existential.com, EXIS10TIAL. So be sure to check him out. All apologies to our guest, who we have been running a little behind on, but we're bringing in Tyler Kotesky to the program right now. We'll give you his story once he picks up.
Hi there, you've reached Tyler.
Oh, we missed Tyler. It's all right. This is not the first time this has occurred on our radio show. We're going to redial. This will be to bring in Tyler Kotesky, who's running to represent California's 54th Assembly District.
Hi there, you've reached Tyler Kotesky's voicemail.
Oh, we're missing him. We're missing him again and again. Okay, I'm going to read you his story. We're going to give it time for his voicemail to get set up again. So Tyler's 18 years old. Tyler Kotesky is running to represent California's 54th Assembly District with a focus on constitutionally limited government. I think that's a decent way to start. He's going to talk about his role in helping Ron Paul assemble a recent UCLA speech that drew 6,600 people this past week. That is, if he's available at this time, since I ran late. We shall see.
Hi there, you've reached Tyler Kotesky's voicemail. I'm unavailable right now, but leave your name and number and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, here we're going to do something new. Hey, Tyler, this is Brian. How are you? Okay, well, here, let's let's do this. Now, I have a different number that I'm talking to you on then, correct? You have multiple lines? Hang on. The 0948 is still the best number, correct? Okay, here's what we're going to do. Because I'm talking to you through the office line that is not the line routed into the computer. So we're going to drop this call. We're going to give it 6 seconds to reset, and then we're going to call you right back when we're bringing it on the air live. Thank you for being patient. We had a guest run over a little bit, and that is all on me. So thank you for being so patient. All right, we'll call right back on the production line. Thanks, man. Bye. Okay, so that is Tyler. Yes, we were kind of missing each other a little bit there. I love live radio. By the way, if you guys are listening to this live radio show and you want to participate, thank you, number one, for listening. Number two, go ahead and send us a tweet. Come on, if you're not on Twitter, set it up. It takes 2 minutes. It's my new newspaper, I'm telling you. You follow the people that say interesting things and get you to think and report the news, and you decipher the rest. And then you sort through all the critiques and all the analysis. It's fantastic. We're at American_media_. Go to twitter.com. Find us. We're at American_media_. Now, you can also send us a direct message on Twitter. Because what you're going to do is you're going to send us a direct message on Twitter. We're going to get the information in our email. And then we're going to say, all right, cool. So-and-so is listening, and they would like to participate. So if you send us a direct message, nobody else sees it. It comes right to us. Give us your phone number, and then we'll call you live on the air. Or we'll read the question that you ask our guest. So we're going to call Tyler one more time. And connect this time. Yeah, Tyler, it's Brian with the New American Media's Agree to Disagree. You are live, sir. How are you doing?
I am doing excellent. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you for joining us. We had a little bit of a, what was it on Seinfeld? They said our Rhines are crossed when Jerry was dating that. Anyway, but we'll get to that later. Yes. So we want to introduce you because our good friend Mark Claire over at Lions of Liberty, he's finding a lot of Los Angeles area candidates, people that are politically active, that are full of common sense, people that really want to restore the greatness of this country, pull us out of debt, invest in our future, kind of shore up there's so much that needs to be done politically. Mark Claire finds them and helps co-produce by getting these people on the show. That's where we find you, Tyler. And how do you pronounce your last name? This is Kotesky. Am I saying that correct?
Absolutely correct. Very good. Not everybody can get it on the first try.
Well, I am from the Cleveland area. We got quite a few Eskies around there. But yeah, so this is Tyler Kotesky. Cool. You are 18 years old, and I'll open it up to you. Introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Absolutely. So, as you said, I'm a 18-year-old college student. I'm studying history and political science over at UCLA, and I'm running with a slate of 4 other candidates. Nick Hancock, Don Wood, Nicole Peluso, and Matthew Charney to basically get elected to the County Central Committee here in L.A. for the 54th Assembly District. And we basically just want to change the direction of the Republican Party from within. And I've also been very active on UCLA as well through the Youth for Ron Paul chapter, which I started. And just last Wednesday, as you're saying, I was able to bring Ron Paul to UCLA to a great crowd, and that was a really fun event. So it's been a kind of a process of advancing that message of constitutional conservatism in whatever form it can be done in.
Okay, and so basically your role at UCLA, you're kind of like an event planner with the school? You're part of like the campus activities board or something?
Well, I went through all of them to get, this event done, but basically I started the Youth for Ron Paul chapter at UCLA, and through getting enough petitions for Ron to come to campus over a period of about 3 months from January to March, the campaign showed enough interest, and then I actually got a call from the campaign in the middle of spring break and was calling up all of these different UCLA offices. So in a lot of ways, I got a big crash course on giant event planning in the space of a week or so, and it was a really fun experience. But it definitely taught me a lot about getting these kinds of events together, that's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, something you and I did not talk about previously in our conversation. When I was in college, I did mention that I ran for student government president 2 years in a row back in Ohio. But the thing that I did, I was involved on campus, and I was the concert director. So it was my job to bring a $100,000 concert into a 4,300-seat basketball arena. And we got the we got the MTV Campus Invasion tour with Moby opening for Bush, like right at the height. This is '99, right when they were both at their peak, and it was insanity. Wow. There's so many moving parts to live events. I want to ask you specifically about your experience of helping, kind of putting all the nuts and bolts together, all the moving pieces of the event. But I wanted to ask you first, since you brought it up earlier. You said you're trying to run for this position to change the direction of the Republican Party. What would you say the current direction of the Republican Party is, and where do you want to take it and why?
Well, basically, the current direction of the Republican Party is pretty much just, using it's as Einstein said, definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and expecting it to work. I mean, it's kind of the same policies that we've been having, for the past decade on the party lines here. And we're not talking about we have ostensible Republicans running, but none of these people are talking about actually making serious cuts that we need, and none of them are talking about really respecting the constitutional limits of government. And it's a shame because in my assembly district, the 54th. We have about 12.5% of the voters there registered Republican. So you can see what the results of this kind of status quo have been for so long. And, the reason why so many people have not heard of what the county central committee is because most likely they've never even, heard from or seen their, party central committee officials. And that's because, it's our opinion, we think the Central Committee could be doing a better job of reaching out to voters, making their meetings instead of just, a bunch of friends getting together to decide, who to endorse or where to register to vote. It should be more of a town hall kind of experience, open to the people, even educational. Our goal is to really register as many voters as we can to help the GOP. And, my whole slate, we have all these different things that are our individual strengths. I've obviously got plenty of experience in youth leadership. My colleague Nick Hancock is really big on civic education and the Constitution. He's done copious amounts of work at the 10th Amendment Center. Nicole Peluso and Matthew Charney are both experienced entrepreneurs. They understand problems with the business climate that we're facing. And Don Wood is actually an incumbent, and he's seen the problems with the committee. And he actually helped recruit us to run because he wanted to have other like-minded folks in there to be able to work together with.
Well, let's talk specifically now. We'll move back to your event at UCLA where Ron Paul came out and spoke to the students. I want to kind of have you paint the picture, kind of report it to us after the fact. It was a lot going on. I'm sure it was very hectic, and now you've had a week to reflect. So let's go back and paint the picture. Was this on the exact same day that Fox News ran a story saying, where in the world is Ron Paul, saying that he's not campaigning and nobody's paying attention? Wasn't that on the same exact day that he came and spoke to your campus?
I believe you are right. It was pretty brazen of them. There was all over Facebook that article was pilloried because they show the article and circle the headline, where's Ron Paul, and then right next to it shows all 6,600 people in the Los Angeles Tennis Center surrounding him, and he's got these giant speakers, and it's this huge event. There's people on the trees outside looking to get in and looking through the fence and stuff because we've filled it out completely. And there's a little arrow, and it says, "There he is."
now is that
you can find him?
Is that
massive people that he's speaking to?
Yeah, kind of like Where's Waldo? Because he's lost in a sea of college students. It's so crazy seeing freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors in college that are just amped about a 77-year-old dude. I get the charisma of our current president, Barack Obama. I get that he broke racial boundaries after a country that used to allow slavery. I totally get after 8 years of Bush, it's like, oh, this is a breath of fresh air. This is so cool. Yes, we can change and hopeity change and changeity hope. I totally get kind of getting wrapped up in that and being excited, but you're on the ground there. Tell me why are 18 to 22-year-old kids that excited like they were with Barack Obama and all the barriers he broke through, and just after the 8-year malaise of the Patriot Act and all of these foreign wars and all of Bush's policies. Why are people this excited for a 77-year-old dude from Texas?
Brian, it's I think what it really comes down to is the fact that my generation, the youth, we have much more access to the internet. We're not just watching whatever is the Murdoch-approved mainstream media that you see on TV every day. We don't rely on news anchors for information. We rely on ourselves. We go to a variety of websites and different sources, and we can make more informed decisions. And that's really, I think, the difference between the mass-based youth effort behind Ron Paul as opposed to Obama. It's not so much hype. You talk to Ron Paul supporters, and they can list off several different policies of his and talk about his consistent record and all these different areas where it's not built on this kind of patina of, oh, well, he seems like a cool guy and he's fresh and he's something new. It's because we know from our own research this guy knows what needs to be done in these drastic times, and he's going to do it because he's proven it.
He's consistent over 35 years. I wish we would have maybe listened to him. And everyone's like, oh, well, would you have a beer with the guy? Come on, I saw Rick Santorum on TV saying, well, I'm a guy you could have a beer with. I'm like, until you ban it, until you say it's illegal, come on, man.
Exactly.
For anything, look, and here's my thing with the GOP, just to jump in here. You got me thinking about all this at once, so I'm just going to let it rip. Well, you have Romney. I could have at least said, all right, he's a businessman. The Olympics were failing. He came in, he trimmed the fat, he got it organized, because what does our country in the United States need right now? You got to trim the budget. You got to get it running efficiently. Maybe he has a skill set there, and he lost me with, I would have voted for the NDAA. Really, indefinite detention of American citizens. You lost me. So then Newt Gingrich is out there and he's like, I'm this grumpy old guy and my wife's kind of hot for being really, really old. But you know what? If anything, I would enhance and increase the Patriot Act. Okay, you lost me, Newt. I mean, I vaguely remember you from the 90s, but you lost me with the Patriot Act. And then Rick Santorum, I'm sorry, you cannot be socially conservative as a president these days. You just got to go libertarian and say, look, I'm personally conservative. I believe this for a reason. I'll explain my faith to you if you'd like to hear it. I'll explain why I choose to live this way. But you just got to go libertarian, and as long as you're not picking my pocket or breaking my leg, do your thing, I'll do mine, and let's get to the issue of debt and job creation, fixing the housing market, and a strong national defense, all that stuff. Every major candidate lost me.
Well, and even with Santorum particularly, even beyond his social conservatism, he's not really that economically conservative to begin with, which is the biggest issue for most of the GOP. I mean, he supported Medicare Part D and all this other stuff, and all the right to work things going on when he was in Pennsylvania and everything. And like you said with the other guys, that we're all about constitutional conservatism apparently, except for when it's the Constitution at play.
Yeah, and we should have maximum freedom and maximum liberty, but a woman can't decide with her body. And look, I don't need to even tread into that stupid category, that horrible thing called abortion, because it will never get our country on the same page. We will always argue over it, and I get the points on both sides. But it's a personal issue. If you don't want to have one, if you think it's horrible, don't do it. And I don't need to get into your personal life to regulate all of these things. I heard a great quote here. Keep the Republicans out of the bedroom and keep the Democrats out of the boardroom. Because they don't understand the business of it, Absolutely.
Well, the nice thing about Ron Paul, I think, is that he has, and the reason why I think he's best situated to win a general election. It's just that he has, both he has kind of a happy medium when it comes to issues like that. He has his own personal beliefs, but he will let the states, determine their own policies. And I think that's a nice way that it's palatable for, both social liberals and both social conservatives, depending on what your, personal view is on a topic like that.
It's not too...
But
it wouldn't be too long for someone to get in their car and drive from Utah to California if they want to get a little more open. And if you want to be a little more conservative, it's not too hard to drive from California to Utah. If your states are kind of handling most of the issues, the 10th Amendment, if it's not in the Constitution, the federal government doesn't touch it. It's up to the states to handle it. We've forgotten these basic rights that the founders spent so much time and shed so much blood making sure we had at our disposal as citizens. And we've lost that a little bit.
Yeah, the 10th Amendment especially is a really big issue, and that's kind of that's one of the big things that we want to do, our slate in office. For instance, with the NDAA, like you said, it's this really egregious abuse of police power, essentially, that's completely unconstitutional because you don't have habeas corpus. You don't have, like you said, all these basic rights that we've been fighting for centuries. And one of the biggest things that people are doing locally now is starting movements to nullify the NDAA.
It's already nullified. I've thought about this, and it's already nullified. We have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights. I think
but you
instead
have to fight for that, though. You got to assert those rights. That's where activism comes in.
Well, at some point, you don't need to nullify something that is inherently illegal. You just have to prosecute. And I think it's called treason when you violate the oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And I'm not trying to be bombastic here, and I'm not trying to be what's that other phrase? A rabble-rouser? That was such a weird word. But, I'm not trying to be goofy here. I legitimately mean, if you are violating the oath you took to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, that is called treason. And if these people are trying to pass something that's completely illegal, I think those people who voted yay should be held personally accountable here, because the NDAA says you can be taken off the streets, held without trial as an American citizen for the duration of a war. A war against what? A war against terror. Well, terror is a thing. That's never over. That's Orwellian, 1984. It's craziness. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it all comes down to who gets into office, especially on the congressional level, to be able to vote for these things or vote down these things if they're unconstitutional. And that's really where having the right members in your central committee, as obscure of an office as it is, comes into play. Because at your county level, you can endorse specific candidates, whether it's for assembly, whether it's for a congressional district. And we can, as central committee members who are, committed to bringing the party back to the grassroots and to conservatism in its traditional form, we can endorse candidates who will stand up for the Constitution and actually reduce the size of the government. I know another thing, too, in California is this Proposition 14 that we have that opens up the primaries. And that's really, especially it only allows basically the top two vote getters to be the choices on your general election, no matter what party they're from. And in a district where we've got 12% Republicans registered, more than likely you're going to end up with two Democrats just based on the demographics. And so by, opposing things like that, we can really start to redefine what conservatism is and have candidates that actually represent those values and can give a clear contrast against, people like Barack Obama, people like Henry Waxman running in the 33rd for Congress again. And I think it's really when you realize that your change has to start at the local level with individuals organizing. That's how we came to understand the importance of this central committee race, and having people there who can really energize the party and bring in new people to the party to oppose kind of this statist agenda that we're seeing, more than the people in there currently.
And we are talking live with Tyler Kotesky, and all of the things that you're saying sound fantastic, and I've been watching on the mainstream media, as they like to call it, although it will soon be the dinosaur media. That's why we are the new American media over here, because at some point the people will be in charge of disseminating the information and getting through the lies and the slant and the bias. But, I keep hearing that the Republican nominee has already been chosen, that they've already decided who that is, but there are still 3 people in the race. I take it personally saying that Mitt Romney is my candidate when, as a Californian, I have not gone to a polling place and voted my conscience yet. And I take it real personal that someone's gonna try to shove down my throat the baby medicine of, here you go, open your mouth and say, because here's who we're going to decide for you. That's your choice. It's this guy. Well, I'm sorry. I have not voted yet. And I do not support Governor Romney. Would I support him over Obama? Yes, in theory, but I'm not going to vote that way. I've been lulled into that thing twice with John Kerry and Al Gore. I'm not doing it again. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't see enough of a difference between Mitt Romney, Barack Obama, John Kerry, George Bush, Al Gore. John McCain, big government progressives. Okay, so
yeah, what's really so ridiculous about this situation is that more than half the country hasn't even voted yet. More than half the delegates are still at stake, and these very people who are saying that the nomination is inevitable are the very same people who the day after the Iowa caucuses, when it was basically Ron Paul, Santorum, and Romney in a 3-way statistical dead heat, said, Ron Paul's probably not going to get any delegates from there, and now obviously they're coming out later and having to retract that and everything. So, it's totally still up in the air. That we totally still have a chance, and with Santorum out of the race, Ron Paul's the most conservative alternative to Romney, and that's why I think it's really important. That's, at the campus level with Youth for Ron Paul and everything, that's why we're undergoing a lot of registration initiatives to get people to switch parties if they're not Republican, or to re-register as Republican by May 21st, because that's the deadline to be able to vote in the primary for California on June 5th. Because they changed the election laws. It used to be an open primary for the presidential race. You could vote in either party no matter who you were registered as. But now it doesn't work that way. You have to be registered Republican to vote in the primary, and a lot of people don't know that. So that's kind of what we're doing locally at the campaign level.
Gotcha. Now, a couple quick questions. We got to run and bounce. Our time is about up here, but I just wanted to ask real quick. Have you seen the pictures? Am I thinking of the Liberty Tree pictures being from your UCLA event that you helped put together? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Liberty Tree pictures, I'm not sure.
This would be the ones with all of the kids up in a tree, several different trees at the back of a really huge event, trying to get a glimpse of the man. I don't know if you've seen the pictures yet.
If that's been the press name for it, then yes, we are the home of the Liberty Trees. That's absolutely right.
If you remember the Thomas Jefferson quote about the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, and I do this radio show hoping that we can avoid any nonsense, that we can come together as a nation, that we don't need to repeat the mistakes of the past. I've seen many Ron Paul quotes about ideas whose time have come being way more important than any sort of violence. But, a lot of other people cautioned if you allow a government to get too big, which it always will, it's going to result in this. So, I'm a pessimist in many ways, but I'm very optimistic that we can turn this around and that we can get the United States of America together on the same page, not divided with black and white, not divided with Republican, Democrat, not divided by 99% versus 1%, not divided by Christian, Muslim. I think these are all distractions, and it's falling for that crap. Excuse my my crass language here. I'm kind of devolving as I get more passionate, and I got to watch that. But I think it's being distracted by all of these other things that allow us to be looted and have our civil liberties stripped from us. So I think it's important. What would you say to everybody out there feeling the same way?
Absolutely, our best hope is constitutional conservatism and making the Republican Party absolutely represent that and not go back on their promises. That's why my slate and I are doing what we can in the 54th Assembly District for our Central Committee race. You'll be able to vote for us in the primary on June 5th, and in the meantime, we have 2 Meet the Candidates forums for anybody in the district who wants to find out more about us. They're April 22nd at the Veterans Memorial Park in Culver City, and May 6th at Mar Vista Park in Mar Vista. And, for more information about any of this I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Kotesky for 54th CC. You can find my other slate members there as well. And as you said, it really comes down to upholding the Constitution and these principles of limited government, not compromising on matters such as our civil liberties that we've fought for hundreds of years to protect. It starts with doing it at your local level, getting candidates and policy platforms out there that are going to support limited government in the long term.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tyler, we're in the Los Angeles Culver City area, and we would definitely like to continue this dialogue as things start to get heated. I mean, we're involved in a lot of issues, whether it's genetically modified foods or medical marijuana. I mean, all of this stuff goes all the way back to the Constitution. If it's not in there under the 10th Amendment, the states decide it, and let's just move on with the important issues of the day. I'm just so tired of being distracted, looted, and robbed. Our dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power since 1913. I mean, something is just wrong. I think we all know it, and I don't want Occupy versus Tea Party. I don't want arguments among the country. We're all on the same team here, and we just want things to be safe. We want things to be civil, and I think all of us at the end of the day just want to be able to be with our families, live a decent life, keep other people out of our business, stay out of other people's business, and just have some fun and relax a little bit from time to time. And I think that's what the mostly libertarian/conservative point of view can offer the country at a time when I think we need it more than ever.
Absolutely. No, that's what we're working for, and hopefully we'll be successful. And obviously, it's a long-term intellectual effort, and that's kind of where this individual local action starts. Bringing that constitutionally conservative message to the people, and really making our policymakers stick to that message and not treat politics like I'll scratch my back if you scratch yours. Treat it as you go there for your principles, not for the power.
All right, now you're in Los Angeles. We've done a pretty good job wrapping this up, but I want you to get as much practice as possible. You got 30 seconds in a campaign ad. Talk to everybody. Introduce yourself, Tyler Kotesky. Tell them why they should care about you, where they can get more information. 30 seconds. It's your elevator pitch. Go.
My name is Tyler Kotesky. I'm an 18-year-old college freshman running for a county central committee in the 54th Assembly District. I can bring the youth perspective and the fresh enthusiasm and commitment to hard work to change this party in the direction that it needs to go. You can check me out at facebook.com/Kotesky for 54th CC to find out more information. We are bringing the party back to the people and embracing constitutional conservatism.
Very nice. Tyler, to be continued. I know that we had a few other people from your crew who were interested in coming on. Maybe they can get on in the next few weeks, next few months as we head into this political process here. So definitely let them know they're invited. Thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate your time. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, and we're going to be right back. We got somebody from Lions of Liberty. Somebody from Lions of Liberty. Do you know who Lions of Liberty is? Yes, I'm saying it over and over and over and over again. Lionsofliberty.com. Yeah, you can go to lionsofliberty.com. We're going to be talking with one of the major players over at Lions of Liberty when we get back. My name's Brian. This is the Agree to Disagree program. I want to thank Tyler Kotesky and existential Ben Weinbrower for joining us previously, along with John Telich. We're going to be right back. We're going to be speaking with Domenic Sidoti of Lions of Liberty. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Agree to Disagree program. We're talking politics. We did just wrap up our sports talk, so thank you for sticking around for that as well. That song is called Metro. In case you're curious, at some point we're going to be putting all these songs. That was a song composed by, well, Sean Flynn for part of a project that he was working on with myself and with a drummer, Johnny Rabb, R-A-B-B. If you want to see some cool stuff, go online, go on YouTube, type in Johnny Rabb, R-A-B-B, one of the 10 best drummers on the planet. And that was Sean Flynn, former co-host, almost always the engineer of the early months of our programs over here, co-producer of most of the early shows, and a very good friend who passed away in a motorcycle crash back on December 5th. So, it's neat that the music lives on because, that's a nice part. You might leave this existence, you might leave this plane, pass on to another experience, but things you do can continue. You look at the founding fathers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin. You go down the line, and there's some really smart people that gave us a lot of rights and privileges, a lot of benefits, the Bill of Rights. It's meant to protect us, and you never trade security for freedom. Never do that. And we did that after September 11th. And then the NDAA, and it's just there are so many important issues right now. And it's like when you're gone, what are your kids going to remember? What are your grandkids going to remember? What are school books going to say about you? And we don't all have to be George Washington. We can't all be him. But we can all do something. And that's what Tyler Kotesky's doing. He's just getting involved. He's an 18-year-old kid at UCLA. He's a man, I love being 17, 18, 19 years old. You know everything. You're invincible. It was a great time in my life. You got to get involved. And Ben Weinbrower, he's involved with existential radio. He's involved. And somebody that we really like, a group of people that we really like, are Lions of Liberty. Lions of Liberty are good friends of the program. Mark Clare has come into the studio. He has been a co-host, co-producer. In a very significant way, he has co-produced today's episode. And we're bringing in Domenic Sidoti to discuss Lions of Liberty and the state of politics today. We'll bring him in right now. Dom has been on the show before.
Hello.
Domenic Sidoti, this is Brian with the New American Media. You are live on the air, sir. How you doing?
Doing well, Brian. How are you?
I'm living the dream, thank you much. First off, I wanted to apologize that we were running a little bit late, but you know what? When you're the producer, the engineer, when you're the main guy who determines how long your shows go, you can make them go a little bit longer from time to time. So I'm sorry I kept you waiting, but that Tyler Kotesky was a little more interesting than I thought, and Ben Weinbrower had a little bit more to say than I thought. So my bad. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, not a problem. It was a pleasure. I was listening along, and it actually gave me some perfect timing to watch the first period of the Flyers game over here on the East Coast. So
very nice.
Thank you.
Explain to people. You say you're on the East Coast, so let's set up Domenic Sidoti as a person, as a man. By the way, I just got some good news. I don't know if you want to share that, but introduce who you are, what you do, why you do it, and where you're located, and all these things.
Sure. Well, it's a tough act to follow. I was really impressed, and it kind of goes into something I want to talk about tonight with Tyler, being so young and being so active. And just knowing so much. His knowledge level was just amazing. I remember being 18 and thinking I was political and thinking I knew what was going on. But like your first guest said, I thought I was a lefty because I kind of hated Bush, and that's about as deep as I went in my understanding. So it's encouraging and really, really motivating to hear young guys like that know so much and be so involved. To give up that much of their time and effort at 18 is impressive. But that's kind of the motivation that I have. I'm really just an average Joe. I work for a software company. Didn't really like get too much into politics because it seemed like a kind of a futile game. I took a very uninterested approach in politics. The lesser of two evils attitude is what I like to call it. And always kind of considered myself kind of a lefty, as your first guest said, because I didn't like Bush, I didn't like wars, I didn't like invasions of personal privacy, and from my perspective, that was always happening at the hands of the red guys. And I was kind of woken out of that. My John Overman, I'm also from Lions of Liberty, called it a coma in 2007 when I kind of heard the message that Dr. Paul portrays and realized there's something to this, and we can think outside the box, and we don't always have to, vote for the status quo and the same thing over and over again. Another thing Tyler said, that insanity thing, we just keep doing it. Why keep doing it? So really, we didn't think it was right how the message wasn't getting out, and decided in our limited personal time to try to spread that message a little bit wherever we could, and you've been awesome at helping us do that and get some ears to listen to. So we have a website, lionsofliberty.com, www.lionsofliberty.com. I appreciate you mentioning it quite a few times there before you went to break.
Yes, I did. I just got I got caught in a beautiful little rut, and I just said, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say it a few more times. If I can hit 10, I'll be happy. It was fun.
Well, your check's in the mail, man. We do appreciate it. So thanks.
Nice.
So now we have the website. The new website is we just used the generic blog spot before just to get it started. We really started just emails between each other. We were old friends from Pennsylvania State University. I'm sure some people have heard Mark on your show before. We kept in touch over email, talking about issues of the day, things like this, trying to exploit terrible media stories. But again, we were all talking to each other, and we all agreed with each other, so it seemed like a pointless effort, and we thought maybe we should start exposing the world to our rants and ideas. So we did that with just an easy blog spot page, and since we've been generating a lot of interest and getting a lot of people. So Mark, so I'm not sure if do you know Tommy John as well, Brian?
Yeah, I've partied with Tommy John a couple of times. I know he's the man who has redesigned and kind of launched your lionsofliberty.com website. I like him. He's been on the show. I think he's been on the show once or twice, and he's texted in quite a bit, sent some direct messages to Twitter during the show. But yeah, Tommy John's an interesting character for sure. I like the man, and I see what he's been able to do on your site, and it looks really good.
Yeah. So I just wanted to real quick throw a thank you out to him. He did that all gratis, which is always appreciated. So just as a friendly gesture, I think, for the cause of liberty, and that's really appreciated.
Well,
so
you know what? It's fantastic you bring that up, because I did want to mention the reason I found, to our listeners and to you as well, the reason that we found Lions of Liberty is because a good friend of mine, I mentioned that song that was previously playing was my good friend Sean, who used to be a key member of this radio show. He passed away in December in a motorcycle crash. But his roommate is Ted Distel, and Ted Distel is the one who designed the newamericanmedia.com. Now, he was referred, obviously, through my buddy Sean, and Ted of disteldesign.com. He said, yeah, I can put this site together. And he goes, you know what? You need to check out these guys, Lions of Liberty. He's like, I'm on this mailing list, and sometimes I participate, sometimes I just check it out. He goes, but they're really turning it into something just like you are, and I think you guys would get along. And turns out we actually do get along, because we're all fighting for the same things. It's just, I want to be left alone, and I want you to leave me alone, and I want to leave you alone, and I want our country to thrive and be successful and be out of debt and be lean and mean and be a world superpower to protect ourselves but not be Team America World Police. And I don't really see that out of any other candidate except for someone that you guys always write about. So I definitely wanted to make the Ted Distel connection, because it was at Ted's party and Sean's party that I met Tommy John, and we hung out over there. So I'm bringing it full circle for you. I want, and I guess I do want to open it up to you and let you take it wherever you want to, but I wanted to add two extra things. Number one, so I take it, being on the East Coast watching the Flyers, you're currently in Pennsylvania then?
Yeah, I'm actually in New Jersey, but only a few miles
outside
right. of Pennsylvania.
And we did say that earlier in the pregame when we talked about that, and I forgot. Okay, so you're in Jersey.
Everyone forgets. Yeah.
Okay, and so who are you pulling for in the NHL playoffs?
The Flyers, obviously. We grew up in the Philadelphia metro area. Little known fact about New Jersey is that it's pretty much just a big metropolitan area. Part of it New York, part of it Philadelphia. And we're in the Philadelphia portion, so we're pretty psyched for the Flyers. Had a big comeback in Game 1. So
I've
see if we
been
do that
to
again because we're down again.
We had a chance in 7th grade to go to Philadelphia, our nation's first capital, and then in 8th grade we had a chance to go to D.C., with our nation's second capital, which was really neat. And I definitely have an affinity toward Ben Franklin and Philadelphia and a lot of things over there. So I don't want to pry too much, but you and I did mention something of happy news and good tidings. If you wanted to take an opportunity to share that, or we could bounce right into politics.
Oh, sure. No, that'd be great. Yeah, we were talking earlier. Me and my wife are expecting our first child, and we just found out that it's going to be a boy. So we're very excited.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the time to say that.
Well, yeah, it's an exciting time. I mean, we've adopted cats off of death row, and we're still excited. Like, oh, you're still alive, Ray Charles, our little cat. And it's like, that's just a cat. So if having a kid, that's a very exciting thing. So I want to congratulate you if you felt like sharing it, and I tried not to pry and push it if you didn't want to. So congratulations to you and yours, by the way.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Brian.
Okay, so let's bounce back into politics here. Enough with the cordialities, because time is of the essence. Speak now or forever hold your peace. You said at 18 you hated George Bush. Yeah. Why did you hate George Bush? And that being the case, you felt like you were a lefty. And what woke you up from your what is the phrase from that Lions of Liberty article? Woke you up from your neocon coma? Let's get into all of that.
That was Odie's version. See, now I was woken out of my thoughtless liberal coma, I would say.
Okay, so at 18, what did you know with the world?
Opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, so at 18, what did you know about the world, and why were you convinced Bush was the bad guy and that the Democrats were right?
Yeah, see, I didn't know quite as much as I thought I did. I think I was kind of a, I don't want to use offensive terms, but sort of a lemming. But I watched a lot of The Daily Show, and I watched a lot of what some people might call the liberal media, and really kind of bought the message. And, with the Bush years, that was when I was first coming into my kind of political awakening, and there's just nothing but bad news and nothing but, the Patriot Act and things that, the thing that I held most dear all my life, even before I thought I was political, was personal liberty. I always found that to be the trump card of all matters, of all philosophies. And it just seemed like a gross violation. And everything I heard about the Reagan administration was kind of the same thing. It was all about wars. It was all about government power, federal power, and I didn't like that. And to me, the alternative, the peaceful alternative, the guys standing up for that personal privacy were the Democrats, as far as I knew. The Clinton years had a lot of really good press. I was young, didn't really scrutinize much, didn't have the internet till about 99 when he was almost out.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of, the story was told to me in a way that all the evils laid with those GOP guys. They were real scumbags. All they cared about were rich people. The narrative. And, I largely agree with it still. I don't consider myself a Republican at all. Fiercely independent, I like to put it.
I like fiercely independent. You know what? If you go to cafepress.com, I'll tell you what, you and me, we can make some bumper stickers and say, Lions of Liberty and the NewAmericanMedia.com, fiercely independent. We'll split the profits 50-50 and we'll donate it all to our favorite candidate. But so you were fiercely independent at the time. You still kind of agree with that narrative that the Republicans are bad. But let me not to put words in your mouth, but instead of saying now Republicans are good, which you don't, you're saying, wait, the Democrats are the same. They're part of the same machine that I don't like called Republicans. They're called big government progressives. Am I close to what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm thinking. I think me and you actually over email, I think once used the George Carlin quote, that whole rant about the two clubs that you just don't, I know it's a family show, effing belong to. That finally rang really true after going through it a few times.
You and me are not in the club.
You're right.
So you
this is exciting times. This is kind of like our club. Like I said, it's the campaign, I get made fun of a lot. People on the East Coast like to, pardon the term, bust balls. So I post stuff on Facebook. I get a lot of people poking fun at me, you nerd, this and that. Because like I said, I'm kind of just an average guy. I'm not an activist. I don't have half the credentials that your last guest, who is half my age, has in the political arena. I just think this stuff matters, and I think there's a lot of people like me who like to investigate things a little deeper, who like to have an independent perspective of what's going on. And we're being fed all these manufactured stories. I listened to your piece about Trayvon and George over there in Florida, and that's the kind of thing that we have the unique ability to fight. And I feel like a huge hypocrite. Always hated bloggers and thought that was kind of a lame thing. And lo and behold, that's what I do when I'm free.
Well,
feels that important.
Well, it is important, and you touched on something that our previous guest said when we were talking with Tyler about his definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over. I'm just going to quiz you on this. We didn't talk about it beforehand, but have you seen The Simpsons? It's a treehouse of horror. This would have been when Bob Dole was running against Bill Clinton, and the two aliens came down to the planet, Kang and Kodos. Do you remember at all what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I might not remember the exact place you're going, but I do remember that episode. Yeah.
If you know the exact place I'm going, I'll let you say it.
No, I said I don't think I know.
Oh, okay. So what happens is that the two candidates, Bob Dole, I am Bob Dole. It's really awkward because they're aliens taking over the bodies of Bill Clinton and Bob Dole, and it's discovered right before the election. Oh no! The candidates are aliens. They're these big, slobbering green aliens with like all these tentacles and, this big space helmet. They're about 10 times the size of the public. And it says, what are you going to do? Vote a third? And then Lenny goes, well, I think I'll vote a third party. And then Kang or Kodo says, ha, 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 go ahead, throw your vote away. And then they end. So the final scene is Homer Simpson in bondage. He's attached to chains. He's pushing a rock or helping pull a sled or something. He's completely enslaved by this alien race. And he turns and says, "Hey, don't blame me. I voted for Kodos." So his choice was Kang or Kodos, and he chose, well, I'm going to vote for the alien that's going to enslave me versus a third party where you're told you're throwing your vote away. So, the definition of insanity, vote a Democrat, Republican again, or let's maybe try something different. I'll just toss it back to you. I just wanted to share that because I felt it was very pertinent to the Einstein conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Yeah, and I think to that point, not to take the conversation in a different direction, the Simpsons, South Park, I think our cartoons are teaching us more than anything you're seeing on the grown-up shows.
That's a good point.
I kind of credit, it sounds embarrassing, I credit South Park with a lot of my philosophical developments, at least challenging me to ask the questions and not accepting the red-blue paradigm all the time.
Well,
I
think that South Park did probably the best job that I've seen in discussing the subprime mortgage crisis. I think South Park did the best job in the Margaritaville episode. I don't know if you saw
Chicken Without the Head. Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh man, I'm you're a married man. You got a kid on the way. I'm a guy. I'm a first time married, first time home buyer. And I am completely wrapped up in this subprime thing. People are like, I'm 20% underwater. I'm 50% underwater. We're 400% underwater. It is so
my God.
It is so ridiculous out here in Los Angeles in this condominium. You can't even really put it into words. And it's just been a 4 or 5 year nightmare trying to sort this stuff out. So I think it hits you at a certain point when it hits close to home. When it's not just something called subprime and it's on TV, or it's some guy named Bush or some political party called Democrats. They're both the problem because they're the same thing. What do you think when you hear people like me say stuff like that? And what type of things do you tend to write about on Lions of Liberty for people out there listening that maybe haven't tuned into you guys before?
Yeah, I get excited hearing people like you say that sort of thing. I get excited. I think it was a couple nights ago I heard that we have the highest percentage of Americans who consider themselves independent. I get really excited. I think this is good things. This is us moving on, hopefully, or at least shifting the paradigm. I'm sure it'll be hijacked by big interests somewhere down the road, 20 or 30 years. But hopefully we do something here and turn it over. But the stuff I write about on Lions Liberty, I think I distinguish myself a little from the other major contributors, and I try to actually my stuff's a little more anecdotal. I think, and tries to, kind of with what you just said, tries to bring it into personal experiences. You know, I had a post a couple of weeks ago. We had our basement waterproofed. We had a company come in and do a French drain.
Right.
And I was working upstairs, and I could hear the guys chattering back and forth, and I'm watching how quick they're getting done. I'm seeing all the different rocks and materials they have, and it just kind of inspired me. You know, we follow kind of the Austrian school of economics, or we believe in that sort of thing, or read about it at least. And you know, that free market economics thing that really is kind of looked down upon by, you know, academics and intellectuals and you know, not to use terms, but liberals and leftists. But there's so many great things that it brings, and it kind of inspired me to write about that. Just the miracle of the free market happening in my basement, the rocks that crossed 3 continents, or the skill set they brought. And you know, I thought about going it alone, and the cost it would have had for me to try to do it by myself, and all the mistakes I would have made, and possibly ruining my foundation and all that. And then I kind of tied it into, you know, maybe this isn't really getting you excited because you never had a water problem in your basement, but everybody's been to a supermarket, and I think that's a pretty, you know, we take that for granted. You've always seen supermarkets, I'm sure, even in Cleveland, right?
Yes.
Supermarkets. But you never kind of take a second to think about how amazing that is. I mean, you can get bananas, which, to my knowledge, aren't even grown on this continent anywhere, are they? I mean, any time of year, you can get green, you can get ripe. But I'm not here to say that it's not flawed. I don't think you're ever going to find a system that's not flawed. But I think it's important to take a step back. You know, everybody wants to, we use too much gas, or there's too many emissions. And yeah, it's true, and it's something to be addressed, and we should think about it. But there's a lot of really good miracles that really have come about because of people's free interactions with each other. And you know, people don't like to hear profit motive and this and that, but that's kind of the mechanism that pushes all that along. I work in software, and you know, we do shipping software, logistics software, and we see, I mean, the industry dedicated to moving all this stuff, and how many different people it touches hands. They don't even know where it came from or where it's going. They have a piece of paper that tells them to go here, and it gets there. And well, I mean, the toothpaste is always on that shelf. The banana is always on the rack. And I think it's important to recognize, and I think that kind of stuff, you know, I leave some of the more newsy type items to Mark or Matt. I think they handle that really well. I like to try to pull people in who maybe don't get kind of bored with that sort of thing, and just apply those principles. My latest post, actually, because I have kind of a personal stake in this, was in the Philadelphia Inquirer 2 weeks ago. There was one of these, you know, touching articles about, you know, us poor working class saps who spend all this money to go to college and now can't find jobs. And I'm not here, I didn't want to downplay that. I know a lot of people it's affected, and it's a shame. But the article fails to do anything but drum up emotion and to get people excited and kind of mad and angry at external forces that they never really explain. And I thought that it was important to kind of take a step back and talk about what do we do to fix that. This article claims that's what its aim is, but really I think it's just I like how you brought up a rabble-rousing earlier, a rabble-rousing type article. And I think it's time we kind of call out the media that, well, I mean, everybody here reads Philadelphia Inquirer. Everybody has a lot of faith in it around here. For people to read this sort of thing, kind of give themselves excuses without kind of really evaluating the cause and effects is dangerous. And that's kind of what I did my last one on, and talked about my own personal experience. I borrowed a lot of money to go to school. I was out of state. I went to Penn State. I had to go an extra year because of a car accident. I borrowed a lot, and that's, you know, for a while I loved those stories. I'd read them and think about how the system screwed me and be mad at something I couldn't even point my finger to. But it was irresponsible. I should have taken out that much debt. I know I was only 18, but I think our buddy Tyler proved that even at 18 you can make smart decisions. So that's the kind of stuff I like to write about. Try to bring some color, I guess, to the website.
No, that is a good definition and a good explanation of the type of things you bring to the table, because it's good to know, because sometimes, I don't want to hear Al Sharpton debate Bill O'Reilly, but then there are some days I really do. I really want to get into it. I just want to nitpick it and just play the game. It's mental exercise for me sometimes. And then there are other days it's like I just got to watch Conan O'Brien, or I got to watch Ancient Aliens, or I got to watch Extreme Preppers or something, and just take my mind off of it because I just can't handle it anymore. And I think I've always gone to church as a child. My parents always made me, and
Right.
we went to maybe 10 different churches. We never really found a home base for more than a couple of years. But what I liked is when I would go, when people would just tell basic stories about, so I'm at this cookout the other day, and I have these burgers, and we're making some cheeseburgers, and one of the burgers, and he's going into this story about just something we have all done in the past month. It's
Right.
not in Latin. It's not playing at base emotions. It's not all scare tactics of hell and fire and brimstone. It's just, hey, here's what's going on. I had to get a French drain, and I listened to these three guys talk about rocks being on 3 continents, and it got me thinking about this, that, and the other. Like we had a post on our Facebook site with the New American Media where it was a list of all these people that didn't realize the Titanic was a real thing. They just thought it was a movie. And so it's all
Really?
these, yeah, you got to go on our Facebook page and take a look at it. It's right toward the top.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
And it got me thinking, I looked at that, and yes, I laughed out loud. I did not write it LOL, but I did laugh out loud, and I thought it was hilarious. But then I started typing, and what came out was, it just occurred to me, because that's what they said. It just occurred to me this was a real event, not just a movie. And I said, it just occurred to me that we had to fight to defend our personal freedoms and liberties against the British oppressive rule 230-something years ago. It also occurs to me, and I went into this big political thing. I took a completely non-political story and went political because it was a good metaphor for me. It's like, if these kids that are 18... 15 to 18 don't even know the history of this country, how can we expect them to defend our personal freedoms and liberties? And it's like you said, you listen to Tyler, who's 18 years old, and some people give us hope. Like, wait a minute, they're actually more educated on this stuff than I was. I just thought Alan Greenspan was a genius because that's what Fox News said 15 years ago. I didn't know any better. And so
that's what I paid $20,000 to learn. You pay that much money, you think they're telling you the truth.
Lord. And then you wake up and you realize, this was indoctrination. This was just straight up indoctrination. And I always rebelled against it in school. I went to school in Ohio, and I just always rebelled against it. I called it liberal state university. It's like, that's fine, present your opinion, but let me present mine. And let me tell you when you're wrong and not take it out on me in my grade. I would always challenge them. And I think that's what you guys are kind of doing with Lions of Liberty. So why don't we sum up? It's a big week because Santorum got out of the race. What do you think that means for the rest of the people in the race? Because I know, although you try to stay away from the politics, this is obviously a general question regarding this election.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm as guilty. I've been pretty involved, because you can't be a champion of liberty and not be involved when somebody who embodies it so fully is this close to that powerful position of the GOP nomination. So I've been following it pretty closely, obviously. And I think this is great news for us. I mean, Santorum had potentially, as the media would report, 280 some delegates. I think about 100 of them were. Don't quote me on the numbers. I'm about off by 6 or 7. I think.
Fair enough.
But the 97 of them were unbound, so regardless of them staying in or not staying in, don't mean they're actually going to vote for Santorum, which is something that gets lost in the mainstream narrative as well. And then he has 188 left over. That is an exact number. That one stuck in my head. 188 left over that are bound to him. At this point, he has just suspended his campaign, so I guess the delegates are still bound to him. And if he doesn't release those delegates, they still have to. They're still obliged to vote for him at the convention in August. But if he does release them, they are also unbound and can vote their own way. And a piece I did a few weeks ago on Lines of Liberty was about, the long shot, this brokered convention and what that can mean. And it can mean a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of rules out there that are very convoluted and hard to understand, and I found out disappointingly can change like up to the day of the nomination, which just shows you what a sham having two big clubs running elections is. But then again, they're clubs, as we have to remember. They can write their own rules,
And we're not
as wrong as we feel it is. But, sorry, got a little tangent there. But
no, I mean
even
you're
if he
talking
doesn't-
about the complex. You were basically diving into you start off saying, well, I'm not really into the nuances of the politics. I talk about rocks, and now you're giving me all the details of 188 bound and unbound electorate.
Well, I mean, you got to be.
Delegates.
You. I don't know if you talk about stuff like this with people in your daily life, but I do, and they give me a lot of grief because they watch CNN, they watch Fox News, and they know that Romney has got it locked up and it's over with. And why am I such an idiot still doing this stuff? So I've taken some numbers down to mind, so at least some talking points, so I can actually have conversations without people jamming the mainstream version in my throat. But I mean, point being that whether the delegates are released or not, that's about 200 delegates taken out of the pool, the clinching pool, for Romney, just making it that much harder. I mean, I read something the other day that even if he wins a majority of the primaries between now and June, when they end, he might not be able to mathematically clinch it until June. I mean, these are all very real possibilities. And I'm not saying that Paul, now that St. Thorn's out, is going to just go ahead and go on a tear and win these primaries. I think it's tough. I think that media narrative, that media perspective has done a lot of damage, obviously. We've been fighting it since the beginning, and we're not going to just get around that. But really, we have a bit of a shot here if this thing goes to the convention and nobody's clinched it. And it's really exciting.
It's down to 3 people. Let's just face it. I mean, Newt Gingrich I think his campaign check from Utah was bounced back to him because he's that disorganized. I think he also missed the Virginia primary, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. I mean, look, this guy's going out. He's getting his message. We remember he's a fighter, and that's nice that his voice is out there because he does make a few good points. But let's just face it, he's not going to be the nominee. So isn't it really just down to either Mitt Romney or Ron Paul? And at that point, I mean, what kind of revolt would it be for people to say, I'm just not buying the fact that you are fiscally conservative, socially libertarian, and pro-capitalist. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you have not been bought off by Goldman Sachs just like Obama has. So we're going to do a protest.
His supporters don't believe it. His supporters don't even believe it.
That's interesting. Out here in California, we haven't had a chance to vote yet. So I'm not allowing that narrative to creep into my world. I haven't had a chance to cast my vote. So as far as I'm concerned, I have not supported Romney. I continue to not support Romney. And that's me. I mean, what do you want me to say? I didn't like the guy last time around, And here we are. It's a chance to maybe try something different, constitutionally limited. I am kind of tending to lean to that with 15 trillion in debt and never-ending wars overseas. Maybe it's just
we got to do something. We got to just try. We should try something. I mean, honestly, if you're a betting man, even if you don't buy the message, if you're a betting man, you got to think something else has got to be tried at this point. But I don't know.
Well, that's
my thought.
Well, let's wrap it up for everybody here. We've
Yeah, real quick, I do want to mention, though, that all this is only possible. The fact that he's still in this, he doesn't have any of his big donors, those Goldman Sachs, everything you mentioned. The only reason he's still in this is because guys like us are throwing money his way here and there, even $20. And he's got another really important one, April 15th, an April 15th money bomb, which is obviously tax day. He likes to kind of line these things up with things that kind of exemplify the message. And it's a really important one. I mean, even the solicitation letter that went out point blank says, we're not sure if we can go on. We need to raise about $2.5 million. So that's coming up April 15th, and if you can even donate $20, it's worth it. I've often joked that you might as well donate the $20 because if any of the other candidates get in, you're definitely going to lose at inflation in a couple of years. So at least throw it his way.
We already have. It's $50 to fill a tank of gas and $200 for a few bags of groceries. Give me a break.
Seriously.
It did not used to be this way. It did not used to be this way. It's because of monetary manipulation for sure. Well, I'll tell you what. I did the same thing for Tyler when we spoke a minute ago. We're big on elevator pitches here because if you hop into a building and you jump in an elevator, you might have 30 seconds with Steven Spielberg. You might have 30 seconds with Conan O'Brien. You just never know where you're going to end up. So you have 30 seconds to kind of unleash the most important and pertinent information about you and what you're doing. Here's your elevator pitch to the nation. Explain to people who you are, who you're writing for, and why they should care about what you're writing about and how they can find out more.
Sure, I'm Domenic Sidoti. I'm with a couple friends, other guys who are not really super activists. We started a website called lionsofliberty.com to really not even just for the Ron Paul campaign. This was after that and before that, and we'll go on. We think it's important to get these messages out to talk about the intellectual version of what constitutional government is and what personal freedom is and what economic freedom is, and fiscal responsibility. And that narrative is not really told. It's either demonized or ignored, and we think it's important for people to hear it, especially regular people like us.
Absolutely.
And I think we're making changes. Whether you think we're crazy for rooting for Ron Paul or not, we are definitely starting somewhat of an intellectual revolution, and I think your guest tonight really exemplified that.
Well, yourself included. Tell them where they can find you online.
www.lionsofliberty.com. Thanks to a guy named Brian Engelman. It's advised that I tell you it's lions like the mountain cat, not lions like in a book.
Absolutely. Or lines at the voting booth where people get to make their opinions in this 2012 election. So I'll tell you what, Domenic, good luck. Congratulations with your child. And good luck with your new French drain. And I hope your hockey team wins because I don't care either way. So until next time we speak, we'll be checking out your posts on lionsofliberty.com.
Awesome, Brian. Hey, thanks again, man. It's great talking to you as always.
All right, thank you. That was Domenic Sidoti. It has been a lot of fun, guys and girls. This has been a really neat show. We always love it when you participate in the program. If you're new to what we're doing, you can find us at thenewamericanmedia.com. That's where you can locate us. If you are on Twitter, well, put it this way. If you're not on Twitter, you got to get there and find us. We're at American_media_. If you're on YouTube and you want to check out some of our videos, our interviews, our podcasts, we have a lot of different content up there. Music reviews, spiritual conventions. We go to Occupy LA. We go to music conventions. We just do a lot of different stuff. Go to youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. And, of course, search for us on Facebook. We want to thank all of our guests. This was a really good show. Tyler was fantastic. We certainly appreciate Tyler Kotesky from UCLA joining us today. Domenic Sidoti, thank you. Ben Weinbrower, thank you. John Telich, thank you. My name's Brian. This is thenewamericanmedia.com. We wouldn't do this if you guys weren't listening, and girls. So thank you very much. Remember, in this country we were bestowed with a fantastically amazing, unique, and one-of-a-kind situation known as the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. We got to protect and defend it every opportunity. You got to keep the wolves at bay. And you got to avoid the politics of the Republican, Democrat, the black and the white, the rich and the poor, the Muslim, the Catholic. You got to stop fighting amongst each other and realize we're all brothers and sisters. We're in this together. Not in a new age hippie kind of way, but reality. If we destroy our own country, we're all going down the sink together. So let's get our act together. Thank you very much. We're on every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Thank you very much.